Hello everyone, welcome back. If you're new here, I am Molly and I do book videos here on YouTube. I do a mixture of Christian and non-Christian books. Yeah, that's basically it. So I am here with a wrap-up for, what was it, April? We're going in May, aren't we? So yeah, April. I didn't do very well, at least in terms of my physical TBR that I actually picked out. I didn't do very well, but that is fine. I'm going to go through the books I didn't get to, just briefly say what I've not been able to read, and then we'll get into what I have actually read. They're in no particular order. So the first one I didn't get to was The Only One Left by Riley Sager. The next one was The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. I also didn't get to The Broken Branch by Erin Mangum. I didn't get to The Goblet of Fire by Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire by J.K. Rowling. And then I also did not get to, which I'm really sad about, is A Voice in the Wind by Francine Rivers. I really wanted to read this, but it's a chunker, and quite heavy going, so I really had the urge to read it. I just didn't get the chance to, and I wasn't in the headspace for it. So those are all the books I did not get to. So for those of you who don't know, I mentioned in my March wrap up and possibly even in my April TBR, I was started to feel a bit slumpy. So I wasn't sure how much I would read, to be fair. And I didn't read very much in terms of actual books, although actually I did better than I thought. Mainly because of audiobooks. Thank you, Katie, because Katie from Paperbacks and Ponytails is the main reason for that, because we were buddy reading a trilogy, and I'll talk about that when I get to it. So yeah, in terms of physical books, most of them I haven't read. I have only read, and I've read more than I thought, but to be fair, one of them is a book I've been reading for a couple of months, which was also a buddy read, and I will get to that as well. So I'm trying to think where to start. What I did instead was I have been doing a yearly challenge that is biblical reading and retelling. So, reading the Bible or reading biblical fiction or reading, Christian non-fiction, stuff like that. And so what I did was I prioritized my Bible readings because I was technically behind in March with my Bible reading, so I just continued what I was reading in March and then read what I wanted to read in April. I think I might do that last, or maybe I'll just do it now because I'm talking about it. So initially I was reading the Acts of the Apostles. That was my March, my March prompt. I think the prompt might have been New Testament. I can't remember, I'll have to have a look, let me just check. Yeah, so for March the prompt was new, so I did the Acts of the Apostles. I just did like a blind pick and I ended up on Acts, so that's what I went with. And then for April it was to read one of the Gospels, and I picked the Gospel of Mark. So I did both of those in April, or March-April for Acts. So yes, I did that, and reading those and also just taking a break from reading books mostly really helped. I was starting to feel a bit better with that. I don't know why I'm closing, I'm going to use it. Yeah, it helped a lot. Yeah, I don't really have much to say about those readings. I enjoyed them. Acts is always, all of the books of the Bible are powerful in different ways, but Acts was really powerful. I mean, you see the conversion of Paul, which is always beautiful to read. Yeah, and then you see, all the places he was going to, and and then obviously all the things with Peter as well, and yeah, they were all just really good books. And then obviously the Gospel of Mark, it was the story of Jesus, so that's always really beautiful to read. So yeah, I don't have anything that stands out that I really want to talk about necessarily with those. Other than it's always, helpful, it always helps to rekindle or, convict. I didn't have any massive convictions really with that one, but yeah. So yeah, that's my Bible readings. So yes, let's have a think. I'll have a look at my bullet journal. Not my bullet journal, the other one. Reading journal. Let's have a look then. Okay, so I'm going in no particular order, but I'm going to start in the order I've written my books down in. So the first one is a Christian non-fiction, and that is Fallen Angels and the Origins of Evil, Why Church Fathers Suppressed the Book of Enoch and Its Startling Revelations. And this is by Elizabeth Clare Prophet. So I gave this 3.5 stars. If I had to round it up to a even number, I'd probably say 4. However, I do have some caveats with this. So it does have the Book of Enoch in this. It also has some other scriptures that I don't necessarily know about. You get there's a book on called the Book of the Secrets of Enoch, and then you have one on I have other books too. Let me just have a look. You also have little excerpts from the Book of Jubilees. You've also got excerpts from one I've not heard of, which is the Testament to the 12 Patriarchs. Again, excerpts. I don't know anything about that one, so I don't know how biblically accurate it is. From what it is shown in this book, it seems pretty biblically accurate in terms of the important things that you hear about in the canon of the Bible. But yeah, just beware, there's books we don't necessarily know much about. So yeah, there's the Book of Enoch specifically, there's commentary on it, as well as other things like scriptures where you have where it's in the Book of Enoch and then the connecting scriptures in the canon of the Bible, as well as other similar things. So the thing that I wanted, so I did enjoy it. It was very interesting. The Book of Enoch is an interesting book. There was one bit specifically that I didn't quite understand because I couldn't really visualize it, and that was when it talks about the sun and the seasons and time and stuff like that, which I found a bit confusing, because I couldn't really visualize it. I would need someone to explain it to me in a very easy way, but other than that, I didn't have any issues with it. Yeah, it's just very interesting. The Book of Enoch, I must say I actually bought this book way before I was a Christian. So this book itself is about 20 years old. I've had it for about maybe in between 15 and 20 years myself. So it's a very old book. I did read it at the time, but most of it didn't really stick because obviously it's been a decade or more. So I decided to reread it mainly again because of the Book of Enoch and the whole Fallen Angels stuff. It was definitely interesting for all of that. Now, I want to say about the author of this book. So, I don't agree with everything. There are things that are obviously biblically unsound, and then there are ones where it's just information that I don't know about, so I'm not 100% sure if I agree. That particular one that I've just mentioned, that was to do with how she said that a lot of the scribes and Pharisees that are talked about in the Gospels are the Watchers, and I was a bit as in descendants of the Watchers, and I wasn't sure about that. Now, something like a claim like that, you can't really follow up on, you can't really prove, so she could be right, but she I just don't know, and I don't think that's necessarily true. I think she's right partly, like maybe there were some, but I don't know. In terms of the Pharisees and scribes specifically. So yeah, I wasn't quite sure about that one, but otherwise, everything else that she said was fine. I didn't see anything obvious until I got to kind of the end-ish. Not really the end, there's still quite a lot left when I put this down, but there is there's like prayers that either she's thought up of or someone else has, and they're like prayers for like protection and stuff like that to do with the Archangel Michael. And however, the way it's done is it seems very idolatrous, because she's praying to Archangel Michael specifically. She's not praying to God for protection, and obviously, he sends his angels to protect, to help us, protect us. I do believe that, but we're not supposed to really pray to them specifically, because they're not God, they're not Jesus. So I don't agree with that. I put a little thing there to show me where it is. I don't agree with that, and I was already getting some hints of stuff where I was like, I'm not sure if she is a biblically sound Christian. She did seem to say things that didn't quite line up to what I believe, but they were obvious. And then I came to this, as well as the prayers which came before to Michael, Archangel Michael, and that is the chart of the divine self. And if any of you know anything about the New Age pictures, I don't know much, but I've seen the New Age pictures and they look very similar to what we see here. And she basically talks about, she says these figures are like God and Jesus and the Holy Spirit and ourselves. But it's just a very New Age looking picture and description of picture and connection to God. It just felt very New Agey. It felt very like when you see the pictures of like the chakras with the New Age stuff. The picture's very similar to that. And I don't agree with her with that one. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend this book. I don't even know if you can even find it, because I bought this 15 or more years ago on Amazon. So I don't know if you can get it on Amazon, but either way, I wouldn't necessarily recommend reading this if you're a bit weaker in your faith and can easily get swayed by things like the whole divine self sort of bit in the book. Then maybe don't read this, or at least don't read that bit maybe. And yeah, you just, use discernment. And when reading this book and everything else, I didn't have any massive issues with it, which is why it was a 3.54, because it was just those few bits that I was like, I don't agree with that. So yeah, it sounds like this Elizabeth Clare Prophet is some sort of New Agey sort of woman. You get other titles, and I think part of that is also the publisher that this book is with, called Summit University Press, because you have books like Kabbalah, which is Jewish mysticism, if I'm remembering that correctly, the Buddhic essence, the human aura. So it sounds very unbiblical in a lot of ways, so I don't necessarily recommend this. Either that, or they do titles from non-Christian authors, which is very possible. I don't actually know. So yeah, I would just, caution you with this one. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. There are probably better books out here about the Book of Enoch that also have the Book of Enoch in them. But this was one I picked up when I was going through a phase of, being very interested in the whole fallen angels and giants sort of thing. But I wasn't a Christian then, so I wasn't, and I was really young, like nearly 20 years ago, I was like a teenager. I was like 13, 12, so I wasn't, I wasn't an adult. So, but yes, I wouldn't necessarily recommend this, but it was certainly an interesting read. And if you can handle, you know, if you're strong in your faith and you're not, you know, necessarily going to wobble or anything, then you'll probably find this good, or at least interesting, you know, because that's the main takeaway I have from it, is that it was really interesting. But yeah, so that is that one. That one is a book I've been reading for months, so that wasn't really a part of my TBR, if you know what I mean. Okay, the next one is my audiobooks, and as usual I keep forgetting to look at the narrators, so I apologise, but I know it's the same narrator for all 3 books. So the first book for this is Recorder by Kathy McCrum. This is a Christian sci-fi, and I listened to this on audiobook through my library, actually, which is quite surprising. My library isn't very good with Christian fiction, so I was quite kind of surprised. They didn't really have any others. They had the first 2 from this series. The series is called The Children of the Consortium, and as far as I know, it's just a trilogy. There's only 3 books out. But yeah, so I really enjoyed it. I gave it 5 stars. Yeah, and I buddy read this book and this series with Katie from Paperbacks and Ponytails. We decided to read the whole series together. It is the fastest I've ever read a series in my life, including the trilogy. So that's good. The fact they were audio definitely helped, but also because we were buddy reading it together, we just got through it all, you know. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. Very interesting premise, because as the title suggests, there are these people who are called recorders, and as the name suggests, they record things. They are supposed to be sort of outside of situations. They're supposed to just record everything that's going on. And basically something happens to the main character, this main recorder, where she loses her drone, which is what helps her stay as emotionless as possible. It's never foolproof, but yeah. And so basically it means that she's lost that title of recorder, even though she still considers herself one. And basically through all of that happening, things happen. There's a mystery that happens. There is technical talk. There is kind of space. Yeah, I don't know if I found it difficult to figure out because it's on audio and not physical. I can't describe how, like, whether they're on different planets or ships the whole time, because you also get flashbacks. So some of the flashbacks are on, I think, planets where, you know, these people were living, and then in like the main present day sort of thing for them. I think it's mostly set on like a spaceship. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. There are a lot of characters, and you get that throughout all 3 of the books. Less so with book 3 because you don't get as many new characters, but there's still a lot of characters. But yeah, it was really exciting, the first book as in particular. Obviously there was some technical talks because of that, but it wasn't, I found it was okay, but that's me. I enjoy sci-fi, so I find I don't mind as much if I don't understand things. There's probably more technical books out there that are sci-fi than this one, so you might find it's okay. I really enjoyed it. But I used this book for Christian fiction, which is Catry. I used this book for new author. And then I used it for Sheena's Read Christian Romance for new author as well. And then for a readathon that was going on in, April. Yeah, there was a readathon called Follow the Yellow Book Road, which is based on Wizard of Oz. And that was created by Ben and Lauren Young from The Youngs and the Restless. But they also have co-hosts. I'll do all of the challenges properly after this, so I will talk about who the other co-hosts are after that. But I used Recorder, I doubled up on that for the readathon, and I used Recorder for the prompt Tin Man. I can't remember which which prompt from that character, but again, I'll tell you after this. And then I also used it for Cowardly Lion. Okay, and then the next book is also now also book 2 from the Children of the Consortium, which is the by the way, the Consortium is the recorders that this follows. So the second book is called Aberration. Did I tell you they're both by Kathy McCrum? By Kathy McCrum anyway, and again it's the same narrator. Again, I don't know who it is. I will have written it down either for book 1 or I'll write it for book 2. And I gave this for 5 stars too. And again, this is something that Katie struggled with, and I understand that. There were a lot of characters, you meet a lot of new ones. Book 2 basically follows on pretty much straight away from book 1. I think maybe there might have been a few days in between each book, but yeah, it basically follows straight on. So it's a very action-packed trilogy because you're kind of just going bam, bam, bam sort of thing. There's no time, not really any time difference between each book in terms of the story. Obviously there will be in publishing, but story-wise, no changes really. I really enjoyed this series. I've really enjoyed this series. It's really good. Throughout both of the books, there have been moments where I smiled. There's been, there's a little bit of romance starting more in this book. You kind of see hints of something that could happen in the first book, but you don't really see any, but nothing actually happens until right at the end of book 1, and then you see a little bit more in book 2. There's definitely a lot of exciting things happening. There's a lot of emotions because a lot of things are happening to other people or experiences people have had in this book, either through flashbacks, because you do get some of those again, or just in general in the present day sort of thing. Yeah, that's basically it, because I can't really talk much about any of the books because, spoilers. So that's all I can think of to say. I did use Aberration for Read Costume Romance by Oshina. I used it for pink on the cover because there is a decent amount of purpley pink on the cover, so I used it for that. And then I also used it for the Yellow Book Road Readathon for the character Glinda, which is a stunningly beautiful cover. I actually wrote it on in this one. So yeah, that is book 2. And then this book, the next one in my list anyway, is Noble by Mishu Andrews. This is book 2 in the King David's Bride series. This is a Christian biblical fiction following King David and one of his other wives, his technically third wife, who is Princess Marka, who is she? I know who it is. Oh yeah, that was it. She's the daughter of Gesher's King Talmai. So yeah, and basically you follow her meeting David, meeting his wives, meeting the rest of the people of Judah and Israel who are with the King David at the time, whilst he's still in the wilderness and hiding from King Saul. This takes place when King Saul dies and afterwards as well, so you get all of that. You don't really get anything about King Saul dying, but you get the whole, Dave, a message that tells David gets anointed, all of that stuff. And I buddy read this with Teresa from Creatively Faithful, and we actually started this in March. Yes, March. But we didn't finish it, so we decided to just continue into April. And so we finished it in April, and it's a really good book. I gave it 4 stars. I just started to really struggle with the whole multiple wives thing with David. I know, obviously, if any of you have read book 1, which is Brave, you do get to see that near the end of Brave, where David ends up marrying Abigail, who was the widow of the fool, Nabal, I think, the man who's foolish and just really mean and a horrible man. He ends up marrying his wife. I think it's Nabal, I can't remember his name now. So you do get a little bit of that, but because it's so, I don't know why it didn't affect me as much then as it does with this one. I think because this one, you get more of a relationship between Marco and David. You get more feelings involved in this, whereas with Abigail, whilst there would be feelings involved, it's very quick in terms of the story. And then also it's more logical because obviously, especially in those days, if a woman doesn't have a husband, she's kind of, you know, she's not in a good place. She needs a husband or someone to look after, like a brother or father. So it logically made sense for David to marry Abigail. But with this one, not that it doesn't necessarily make sense in that logical way. They do have logic with this, with Marka, because she grew up as a princess. She was taught to be a princess and one day a queen, either through marriage to another kingdom or through becoming heir to her father's throne. And so the logic behind her and David is that she can teach him to be a king instead of just, you know, a royal. I think that's the way they phrased it. Either way, like a proper king, how a king should act sort of way. And it just felt like they were excuses, and that's probably what it was. They were probably all being led by their feelings. Satan was probably really affecting them to do that, but they would still pray, especially David. He would definitely pray about it to God and ask God and stuff like that. And so in the end, things would happen where they'd be like, oh yeah, I think God's telling me that I should do this because of these things. And whilst that's possible, I still didn't feel right, because I know God never actually said that men can have more than one wife or women can have more than one husband. It was a man and a woman being man and wife, you know, not man and wife and wife and wife, you know. So I had mixed feelings about it. That's why I gave it a full stop, because I did enjoy the story. I did enjoy the dynamic between Marco and David. It just, yeah, it didn't feel right to me. But I did enjoy the story as a whole. I'm not necessarily put off reading the next book when it comes out, necessarily. I think I would still give it a read. Whether I will continue with that book or whether I will continue the series after book 3, I don't know. But I did enjoy the book. I do think it's really good. It's certainly biblically sound in other ways, and it definitely shows them, you know, I don't know. I might cut that out. Anyway, yeah. I don't know. I have mixed feelings about it, but I did enjoy it. I did enjoy talking to Teresa about it. There's definitely lots of beautiful faith moments, you know, especially when David gets anointed. I definitely cried at that. So there's definitely some lovely faith moments, and there's, you know, you definitely see the characters dealing with their faith, you know, speaking to God about their feelings and everything else. So it's definitely biblically sound in that way. And I know Misha Andrews said, like with book 1 really, but especially with book 2 as well, there's not much we know about any of these characters really, especially the wives. So, you know, a lot of it is fiction and fictional. A lot of it is just guesswork in terms of, you know, why King David, you know, married Marka, stuff like that. So it is, a lot of that stuff is fictional. So some people like that, and it makes them more likely to want to read biblical fiction. So if that's you, you might like this. If you're the opposite, then you might not. It's all personal opinion, and also just convictions as well. Some people are convicted about biblical fiction. So, you know, it's all up to you. Most of the time so far, I've enjoyed it, because even though I'm not saying the Bible's not enough with these stories, because it is enough. And you do learn a lot from them and from the characters, as in like the person of the people you read about. But it's always interesting getting more of that in a fictional way. You do get a bit more of that fleshed out, or the possibilities of what could have been thought or done, reasonings, all of that. So I do enjoy that. But yeah, I just have mixed feelings about the David and his many wives. But there we go. So yeah, for Noble, I used it for Katie's Christian Fiction for a new release. I couldn't remember what she said about the timeline for new releases, whether they had to be 2026 releases or not. Noble was released in October 25. So it wasn't that long ago. So I apologise, Katie, if it's not correct. Let me know. Otherwise, I can use it for something else, I think. But so far, I've used it for Christian fiction for new release. And then I used it for Oceana's Read Christian Romance for biblical. Because obviously, biblical fiction. And then I also used Noble for Follow the Yellow Book Road Readathon, and I used it for The Wizard for Quest or Journey, because they do go on a journey. Okay, so the rest I haven't written down in my reading journal, so that's going to be fun. What do I want to do? I might do the rest of my physicals. Maybe I'll do book 3. I might do book 3. So, book 3 of Catherine McCrum's sci-fi is Guardian. I love this book. I love all the books, okay? They are all 5 stars. You don't see as many new characters in book 3. Most of them are the ones you meet in books 1 and 2. So you still get a lot of characters, but not that many new ones in comparison to the first 2. But yeah, it's definitely heating up because it's the last book, so a lot is going on. A lot of stuff happens, a lot of things get revealed. I love this series. Thank you, Katie, for buddy reading it with me and going through all 3 of the books with me, because I wouldn't have been that fast with these books. I loved it. I love this series. It has really helped me during my time of a bit of a slump, because the audiobooks, but also because the books are just so good, in my opinion. And you guys will have been seeing the covers. These covers are incredible, especially books 2 and 3 with all the different colours. Book 1 is gorgeous too, but in a more sort of sandy, sort of browny, red brick sort of colour, whereas the others are just amazing. So I'm definitely going to buy these because the covers, obviously. So they are now on my Amazon wish list. So I'll get those at some point. And yeah, I really thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you so much for buddy reading with me, Katie. I've really enjoyed talking. I have really enjoyed talking to you about them. There are definitely things that I've missed. One thing in particular about a character, which I meant to mention to Katie and I haven't. I'll have to do that because I don't want to say it here because it will spoil things. But otherwise, I don't think I missed much. I think I got everything. The narrator, she was good. She wasn't the best that I've heard so far. I've not read that many audiobooks. She wasn't bad, but she was just normal. She was like typical American accent. There wasn't anything special about her voice. It did kind of lend well with the main character because the main character is a recorder, so she's very much that, certainly in the first book anyway, or at the start, she was very much that sort of kind of unemotional voice sort of character. She still felt emotions, but yeah. But I didn't mind the narrator. I normally read on 2 times speed and that it was fine. I did want to say I did find that the main character, the main recorder, she definitely gave me autism spectrum vibes. She definitely has some autism there. Obviously some is very much inaccurate. But yeah, she definitely had autistic traits. So that was fun. That was really interesting to see. The romance was lovely. It all works out. It's all good. I was happy. What I wanted to happen happened. There was just, yeah, I loved it. There is a plot point that was missed kind of on purpose because it is brought up near the end about this plot line or story, possibly, that doesn't get resolved. And me and Katie both think we feel it would have been nice if it got resolved. I don't know if that's because the author is planning to do a book 4. I don't know. Katie says it's only a trilogy and that's all that's out, so that's cool. But it's definitely written, the last book is definitely written where it all ties up nicely in the end. There's no cliffhangers. but that plot point and that plot point being mentioned definitely gives room for there to be a possibility of a fourth book if the author wanted to or is or could or whatever. So I don't think there is a fourth book. I'm just saying there's an opportunity there for a fourth book. I would like a fourth book, and it would be lovely to have another gorgeous cover. I just love these covers. The covers are just gorgeous. I love this series. It's really helped me during this time of a bit of a slump where I've just I love this. I love these books. So yeah, thank you again for the 100th time, Katie, for buddy reading this series with me. I've enjoyed it. So yes, I haven't really got anything else to say to that one. I do need to think about, did it do any readathons or what was the other one? Challenges. I don't think I did for any of the Christian fiction. Okay, I don't think I used it for any. Oh, hello. There were other books. Nothing new there. Alright, well that's those. The next ones are my physical ones. Let's do it. I'm going to start with this one because it's nearer. So, this book, I'm so glad I read this book. This is the first physical book I started reading after finishing my Bible reading. Not including Noble because that was a continuation. But in terms of a new book that I started in April, this was the first one that I read. And that was A Spoonful of Murder by Robin Stevens. This is book 6 in the Murder Most Unladylike mystery series. This is children's middle grade, and the two main characters are, I think they're 14 in this. This is set in the middle of the 1930s. I think it's 1936, this one. So look. Yeah, there we go. 1936. Yeah, this is continuation of the series. It's murder mysteries, I'm sure you can tell. I love this series. This series is so good. It's secular, so there's no Christian faith in it. There is some kind of faith content in it, but not Christian faith. So what happens in this book is technically a continuation, but not really. They are individual stories, but it is better to read them in order because you get the progression of the friendship between the two characters, who are Daisy and Hazel. Hazel is Chinese. She moves to England to go to school, and that's where she meets Daisy because they're in the same boarding school. And yes, in this book, in this book, they go to Hong Kong, which is where Hazel's from. Her grandfather passes away, and so she goes to Hong Kong with Daisy because she asked her dad to let Daisy come with her as, moral support, as you would. And so they go to Hong Kong, to China, and basically a murder happens whilst they're there, and they're having to solve it. There is also a kidnapping, so they have to kind of solve that and get the kidnapped person back. So it doesn't say in here on the back, so I'm not going to say it, although to be fair I think I already have. But yes, I'm going to leave it at that. It was a lovely book in some ways, and then obviously the whole murder and that stuff, not lovely. But what I really love is being back in this world. I mean, it's not really a world, it's set in our sort of world. But in this, I just love Daisy and Hazel's friendship. They are best friends, they're like siblings. In one of the previous books, you see them go through a difficult time with their relationship. They kind of argue, but then they get back together. It all works out. And their relationship is stronger because of that. And I love that because it feels really realistic in terms of friendships, especially the ages they're at. They're teenagers, so you've got those hormones going on. So it's just really lovely seeing them together again. I have loved this series. I started reading the first sentence in the first chapter, and I was just like, I couldn't stop smiling. I was like, I'm so happy to be back. I love this series so much, especially when I was feeling so slumpy. Getting back into what is a really easy book, murder mystery, so it's exciting, and then you get just a lovely relationship between the two girls. It's just win-win-win for me, and I just loved it. There's no content in this other than obviously it's murder mystery, so you get the murder, and there's also a kidnapping of a child, so just be aware of that. It all works out. Nothing is really on page either, other than you do get a bit where the girls see the dead body, so you do get a very limited description on that, but it's very limited. It's not graphic because it's for kids. It's not a young adult or adult murder mystery, so it's very, very mild in that respect, but you still get the emotions. So obviously it depends on how sensitive you are, but I would say it's all right for kids, for this sort of age group. I don't know, what do they normally call these, like ages 10 to 10 plus or whatever. So I really enjoyed it. I loved it. It's really interesting because this is set in Hong Kong mostly, and it's in the 1930s. You get a lot of that. Oh, that's what I was starting to say about the whole faith thing. Sorry, getting distracted. Basically, whilst they're in Hong Kong, you do get to see a lot of different culture differences between 1930s Britain and 1930s Hong Kong. Daisy is the British girl, so she's, white, she's blonde, and then Hazel is Chinese. So you see a whole different dynamic between the two of them, because Daisy, you get the whole Sherlock and Watson vibes with these characters. Daisy is very Sherlock, Hazel very Watson. So Daisy is often very much the whole, certainly gives the impression that she knows everything, that she's really confident, even if that's not true. But in this, you get a lot of her not being that way, because there's the culture shock, there's the different language, there's the different ways people mourn, and the different ways of showing respect to elders. So you get a lot of those different cultures that you see her being very out of her element and very unsure, and you see Hazel being really in her element. She knows what's going on, she knows what to do. And, obviously she can speak, I think it's Cantonese in this, I think. I can't remember now. But one of the Chinese languages that's used, either Mandarin or Cantonese, I think it's Cantonese. But don't quote me on that, I can't quite remember. You do, when they are talking in Cantonese, I'm going to stick with that because I'm 90% sure that's what they speak. You do get that written in English, so you don't have to worry about the whole not knowing what's going on. You do get that translation. Daisy doesn't, but we do. So yeah, it was really interesting because you do get to see a little bit the whole temple worship stuff. Hazel isn't religious in that way really, or in like the Christian way or any other religion. She's very much of the, well, I grew up with this, but I don't necessarily know how I feel about it. So you do get a little bit of that in terms of like what the temple looks like, the different gods, at least the ones that she mentions. So you do get a little bit more faith content, kind of, but it's more just talking about faith. So there's no actual faith, if you know what I mean. I don't know if you understand what I mean. Hopefully you do. But there's no actual religious sort of faith like we get in Christian fiction. There's no faith in that way, but they do talk about it. So kind of more with the faith in Hong Kong. I don't know what that faith is. They might have said, I just can't remember. But anyway, so yeah, that was really interesting. And you see differences in how they dress, especially in terms of mourning. So obviously in the West, we often, less so these days, depending on the person, but traditionally wearing black or very dark colours anyway, is what people wear for funerals or in mourning, especially in historical ones, like if a wife loses her husband, she's in mourning colours, you know, in black for however long. So you get a little bit of that, but instead of black, they actually wear white, which is really interesting. So it was just, you get a lot of information in this that I just wasn't expecting, and I really thoroughly enjoyed that because I don't know much about that, and obviously I don't know how much of that has changed since then, because this is set in the 30s, so obviously in 2026 that could be very different. I'm not quite sure, but it's still really interesting. I still love this series. I don't have the next book, I don't think. I don't know, but anyway, there's more books. I don't know how many more. It might just be 3 more. But yeah, thoroughly enjoyed this. I really do recommend this series. Okay, the next one is one that a lot of you will be really excited about. A lot of you love this series, talk about this series quite often. One of you more than others. I'm sure you know who you are, Morgan. And Morgan mentioned C.S. Lewis, hint hint, in the comments of one of my other videos. I think I was talking about Mere Christianity, and I replied to her saying, if you're excited about this, just wait till you see my April wrap up, because guess what book I read? Is it The Lion and the Witch of the Wardrobe? It might be. Technically book 1 of Narnia, if you don't count the prequel. The first book published, anyway. And so I read this. So there you are. You happy now started? No. I enjoyed this more than I thought I would. I've not read much C.S. Lewis, but I have read Mere Christianity, and I think because that is non-fiction, and that was all I know of C.S. Lewis's writing, I thought this would be quite difficult to read. I thought this would be more like Charles Dickens with A Christmas Carol, because that's a short book. Okay, we all know it. But there's a lot in that book, and it still took me about a week to read it. This one took me a few days. I'm not sure how many, but a few. So I really enjoyed it. This was a lot easier to read than I thought it would be. And I don't know why I'm surprised, because it's a kid's book. But then again, you could say Christmas Carol is a kid's book, but I wouldn't say that's, I still wouldn't say that's easy to read, really. But yes, I really enjoyed this. I do have questions. Okay, I really do. Because there are some things in here where I'm like, is that actually biblically sound? Okay, and I know you diehards will be like, that is very rude. And I know. But one of them is the whole, you know, mythological creatures, you know, the fauns and all of that. And the whole thing of Bacchus. Okay, over there, right, with the fauns. Because no. Because, like, you guys know, right, that, like, Bacchus is not biblically, not Christian at all, right? Like, Bacchus, like, isn't he like the god of wine? Don't you see his, like, bits as well? You know, he's the dangly bits. How has that got anything to do with God and Aslan in this world, who's supposed to be Jesus? Like, there are mythological things in here where I'm like, I don't think that's really biblically correct in terms of, and I don't mean that in terms of that people can't be saved who were into these things, like the whole dryads stuff. Like, aren't they the same or very similar to Druids, the whole Celtic pagan religion? Which, again, is not biblically sound. It's not Christian. So, like, I have questions. Guys, I have questions with that. I don't feel comfortable with that. I don't think they would be a part of Aslan's army or people unless they were dryads and druids or whatever. Like, I don't understand why C.S. Lewis put them in as people who are with Aslan. I really don't. Those are the only things I actually have a problem with the whole fantasy element of Jesus and everything else. I definitely saw the allegory though, in terms of, Aslan. Very quick compared to Jesus, but I get the point with it though. But yeah, definitely it was still emotional in that way. I still enjoyed it. It's a 4-star. I wouldn't say it's a 5-star. Not just because of those whole Dryad thing and Bacchus. Not really just those, although that definitely contributed. It's more that I enjoyed it. I loved the whole portal fantasy element with the whole wardrobe. I loved that. The ending of it, I loved that. But yes, I'm not sure. I'm just not sure about it. Like, I'll still read. I'm interested in reading the rest of the series. I'm not against that. I might, because it's technically the prequel, I might read is it The Magician's Apprentice? Whichever the prequel is. I might read that next, and then go with The Horse and His Boy, which is book 2 or book 3. That's going to get confusing. So, yeah. Yeah, I just didn't... Like, Bacchus, guys, he's like... Isn't he the god that they will, like, use an imagery of in the Olympics the other year? With the whole, Last Supper stuff with Bacchus in the middle. Like, this is why I have an issue with this book in that way. Because those are, pagan gods, pagan religions. Like, why is C.S. Lewis writing them in? At the very least, as, like, the good guys, or at least a part of Aslan's world. Like, why did he include them? I just don't understand that. I just don't. But I don't have any big issues with it otherwise, okay? I did enjoy it. Still a 4-star. Still interested in the rest of the series. I might try watching the films. I think, are they on Disney Plus? I think they used to be. I'm sure I've seen them somewhere. So I might watch those. Again, probably with each book. So yeah, that is all of them. Of the books I read. The only other book that I read that wasn't on my TBR is I reread Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. I don't know what's with my brain. I re-listened to it on audio again. So I'm not going to talk much about that other than it's still 5-star. I did notice, like Taylor said from Tales and Treats with Tay, she mentioned that there's more swearing than she thought, but still not loads. And I was like, yeah. And then I re-listened to it and I was like, oh yeah, why did I not get that? So there's more swearing in it than I realised, but I mean, there's still not loads. There are like other books that have a lot more than that. There's still not that much. And the film has a lot less. It's even more squeaky clean than the book. And the book is pretty clean. But yes, that was the only thing that I missed, I think. I enjoyed it again. Still a 5-star. Still made me cry. Still made me laugh. It's all good stuff. So yeah, I'm not going to talk much about that one. That was unofficial because I wanted to re-listen to it. And if you think I've seen the film a few times, yes, I have, yeah. I went to see it about 3 times. It's just a really good film, guys. I don't know what else to tell you. I just love the film. The book is definitely better, but I love the film too. And if you're really into your really squeaky clean, you will prefer the film. The book, whilst there isn't any actual spice, there's no actual sets or anything like that. It's like nothing like that. There were a couple of characters that are very open about the fact that they are getting it on, shall we say, and which I thought was quite funny. This is probably not something I should have found funny when as a Christian, but it's more because of how Dr. Grace reacts, because he's like, please stop, I don't need to know this, because they're not descriptive, but they're just very honest. They're like, oh yeah, we know, you know, we can't have a relationship, we're all gonna die in space, so like, we're just doing it for the whole, basically, the lust thing. And like, I don't agree with that, that's not why I thought it was funny. It was just more that they were just like, yeah. They were just really honest about it, and why, it's just really funny. It was just like, I was not expecting this, why are you telling me this? So like, Dr. Grace is doing the same thinking, like, I don't need to know this. And like, they're just like, yeah, yeah. And then they like, you know, ask if they both, one of the couple, one of the people in that couple is like, oh hey, do you want to go get at it again in 15 minutes after this meeting or whatever? And like, yeah. And that was it. That is it. That is the only bit. And then there's nothing else in the rest of the book. But yeah. And then, yeah. I don't know why I thought that was funny, but I did. So there we go. It was more just Dr. Grace's reaction, to be honest, that I thought was really funny. So yeah, there we go. So let's just go into my yearly challenges quickly. So, in the end, for the Read Your Bookshelf challenge, I was able to do both prompts. So one prompt was for March, which was Weapon on the Cover. I didn't get that in the end, but I did in April, because in A Spoonful of Murder, you get a weapon there. This, what is a jade pin, and that was actually found in the murder, in the victim. So that's the murder weapon on the cover, so I used that. And then for April, for Read Your Bookshelf challenge, it was a title that includes a conjunction, and I used The Lion, the Witch and Wardrobe before the word and, which is a conjunction. So I completed that. Then for Christian Fiction Challenge by Catry, we've got New Release, which I used for Noble. Let me know, Catry, if it doesn't count. This was released in October 2025. So let me know if it's too long ago, because I can't remember if you said a specific timeline, like it had to be like 2026 or something. So just let me know, because I'm not sure. So I used that one for that one. And then I used New Author for Christian Fiction. As you know, I used Recorder by Cathy McCrum for that one. And then, did I do any others? No, I didn't do any others. Okay. And then for the Jurassic Reading Challenge by Cheryl from Candlewick Library, it was Mistaken Identity. I don't think I had anything for that, so I've not ticked that one off. For Anne's Reading the Classics Challenge, now, it was a memoir, I think, or biography. Yeah, memoir or biography for April. I haven't finished that. I did get one, but I haven't finished it. Then for Read with Winnie the Pooh Challenge, which is Katie's challenge, Paperbacks, Ponytails, not done anything for that one. Then for Journey Through Time Historical Fiction from Amos, it's At Sea for April, and I used A Spoonful of Murder for that, because there's definitely one, but there's also a little bit at the end as well, where they are travelling on the sea to get to Hong Kong, / from Hong Kong to get back to England. So I'm counting that, because you do get a bit of that on page. And then for Oceana's Read Christian Romance, I used Recorder from Cathy McCrum, again for New Author. Then I used Pink on the Cover for Aberration, which is book 2 by Cathy McCrum. And then I used Noble for Biblical for that one. And as you know, Oceana had Fantasy Rivers Read-Along, which was A Voice in the Wind. Didn't get to that one, which I'm sad about. And then obviously for the Biblical Reading, the Retelling Challenge, I used Acts of the Apostles for March, which was New Testament, and then for April, for the Gospel, I used the Gospel of Mark. Then, I had a few readathons that I did not do. Shocking, I know. So there was a readathon, which is the Read Happy Readathon, which was hosted by Em from Em's Book Club Everywhere. And she had co-hosts, which were Lucy from Lucy Chronicles, Jeanette from Jane Reads, and Alma from Alma's Book Journey. And I have something to say to this, okay? And I wasn't actually told off, okay? But I was told by Em that I could still use them for other books. And I was like, I know. But I just really wanted to use... I really just wanted to use The Hobbit. Because if any of you have seen my TBR, I got really excited because I actually found a book that completed every single prompt. And that was The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. Did I get to The Hobbit? No. Are there other books I've read that could definitely fit these prompts? Yes, most likely. So, cozy setting, beautiful scenery, delicious food, these are all the prompts. Kindred spirit, free space, community, pet companion, favourite hobby, and happy ending. I mean, there's definitely going to be things I can use for that. I can use Line and Witch in the Wardrobe, cozy, beautiful scenery. Not really delicious food. There's not really food mentioned in this. Not much anyway. Community, yes. Free space, obviously. Pet companion, yeah. Kind of. Favourite hobby, I don't remember there being any hobbies. And happy ending, yes, kind of. Can use noble for this as well, for free space, community. Is there food in this? Don't think so. Kindred spirit, I can relate to a couple of the characters. Not really favourite hobby. Spoonful of murder, however, favourite hobby. I enjoy murder mysteries and detecting, so that would count. Happy ending, yes. Community, yes. Free space, yes. Delicious food, yes. Beautiful scenery, I would guess so, kind of. Cozy setting, not really. So yeah, I've got those. And then we've got to follow the Yellow Book Road, which was created and hosted by Ben and Lauren from The Youngs and the Restless. And their co-hosts are Jen from Bookish Blonde, Lindsay from Lindsay's Little Library, Wanda from Wanda Holden, Books and Beaches, whose name I can't remember right now, and then Sarah from Sarah's Nightstand. And I have completed this. So the first one was Glinda. Actually, you know what? No. The first one is Cowardly Lion, and the prompts were I Do Believe in Spooks, a book that scares you. If I Only Had the Nerve, a hero character or character faces adversity. And King in the Jungle, animal on the cover or a character or an animal is the character, and I used character faces adversity for Cowardly Lion, and I used Recorder. I used Recorder for that one by Kathy McCrum. And then Scarecrow, we've got a book that makes you think, read a non-fiction that teaches you new things, or read a book with strong friendship or best friend duo. I used A Spoonful of Murder for that one, for the best friend duo. And strong friendship, because it's kind of the same thing. And then for Glinda, we've got a hyped or book top famous or bestseller book, stunningly beautiful cover, or hopeful / uplifting / a book with an emotionally warm tone. And I used Aberration Cat by Kathy McCrum for stunningly beautiful cover, because that is a stunningly beautiful cover. Oh my goodness. And then Tin Man, we have a book that focuses on emotions, found family, friendship, love, or personal growth. You've got a book about strong friendship, found family, or unwavering loyalty. And then a book about healing or transformation or second chances. And for that one, I also did Recorder by Kathy McCrum, and I used that for transformation, because the main character is, well, through losing her drone, like I said, she changes and transforms into a different person, kind of. Not really a different person, but she does change. Then we have Wicked Witch, and we have a green cover or a book about jealousy or a rivalry. a book with an author with a water element, which is either on the cover, in the title, or setting. And then you have a villain main character. And for that one, I used... Shoot, what did I use? Oh, I can't remember now. I think I used green cover, and I think I used... I already used Spoonful Murder, didn't I? So I used The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe because my cover is very green. And then for the wizard, we have a book that has a quest or journey, a character presenting something other than they actually are, or a book that has a jewel, gem or metal on the cover. And I used Noble for this, for the book containing a quest or journey, because this has a journey. And then we have another book, but this is not a book, another readathon, but this readathon is a 2-monthly one. So this readathon counts for March and April? No, that can't be right. No, it counts for April and May. Sorry. And that is Sarah Collar's Spring into Classics checklist. And the prompts are to read a children's classic, read a classic novel or novella, reread a classic story, watch a classic adaptation, and to read a classic fable or fairy tale. And I ticked off read a classic novel / novella and used The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe because it's novella. It's a novella size. So I picked that one. And then I also have the 2026 Seuss-Along that is hosted by Katie from Paperbacks and Ponytails. So yeah, didn't complete this either, but I'll tell you what I've got. So the prompts were a short story and novella, a hyped book, a green cover, a new release, alliteration in the title, and a mood read. So for short story and novella, I again used The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe. For green cover, I used A Spoonful of Murder because it's turquoisey green, so it kind of looks blue, but it also looks green. And it looks really green to me in real life. It looks more blue in the camera. So I used it for that one. Obviously, I could also have used Narnia. New release didn't get to, because Katie said it had to be 2026 release. So I didn't get to that one. And then alliteration of the title, also didn't get to that one. And then mood read, I used Recorder by Catherine McCrum because that wasn't on my list. It was a mood read and something I randomly picked with Katie because she was like, hey, would you like to buddy read this with me? Buddy read this series with me, and I was like, yes. So, mood read. So that is actually everything. So, I have nothing else to say. I told you about Project Hail Mary. We read that again. So yes, thank you Teresa and Katie for buddy reading your books with me, Noble and the Children of the Consortium trilogy. I enjoyed buddy reading with you both. Yeah, I don't have much else to say to that one. Yeah, that's about it. Thank you so much for watching. How did you do for April? Did you do any readathons? Did you any of the ones that I've done? Challenges? Yeah, and what were your best and worst books of the month? Let me know. And yeah, that's it. Thank you for watching. God bless. I love you all, and I will see you next week. Bye.